It's a real joy and an honor to introduce Chris digiorgio, the chairman of the Tech's board and my great advisor and friend. I wish you could be in a meeting with Chris when a difficult problem arises. There's a point in such a meeting when Chris becomes very quiet and he reaches into his pocket and he pulls out a pen. And then he pulls out a piece of paper or a napkin and starts to draw. Everyone in the meeting knows what's going on and everyone is silently trusting what's happening because Chris is going to reduce a very difficult problem to a diagram. You can hear it in the room. Ooh, Chris has got his pen. Chris has got his piece of paper. It's a little bit like at the end of a game of a Warriors game. The game is tied and everyone knows Steph Curry needs the ball. He's coming down the court. Steph doesn't have the ball, but he's going to get it eventually. Draymond Green gets the rebound, kicks it out to Steph, he toes it up, swish. That's what happens at the end of the meeting. Hopefully Chris says, well, I think we can think about it like this. And it'll be a simple diagram, maybe of a flower or a giraffe, and he'll say, if we think about it like this, perhaps we can at least understand the problem and know how to work from here to there. It's Chris's great gift. He comes by it naturally because he prides himself on being able to communicate like a typical middle-class kid with a public school background who put his determination to work here in Silicon Valley to take advantages of the opportunities that this valley presents. As he puts it, he's a product of Silicon Valley's unique ability to enable ordinary people to do extraordinary things. Working here has certainly changed Chris's life, and he's changed all of our lives for the better as well. Let's take a look at Chris's career and his many contributions to our region. Born in Philadelphia to an Air Force family, Chris was raised at Travis Air Force Base in Fairfield. He attended community college and Chico State University, where in 1981 he earned double BS degrees in computer science and business, a rare achievement for the time. In 1997, Chico named him its Distinguished Alumnus of the Year. Straight out of Chico, he landed his first job at Anderson Consulting, which would later become Accenture, where he remained for more than 3 decades. His first boss, Ed Kennedy, says Chris had an uncanny ability to listen slowly and speak fast. His communication and problem-solving skills took Chris up the company ladder quickly. The beginning of his career coincided with the dawn of the technology age, and Chris rose through the ranks to manage strategic development for more than a dozen major high-tech companies. In fact, during his 32-year career with Accenture, he worked with some 70 clients all over the world, representing everything from software to soy sauce. He was just 32 years old when he reached full global partner, one of the youngest ever to do so. Chris ultimately became Accenture's managing director for California by developing a number of important strategic alliances and excelling in high-profile sales that grew the firm's business in Northern California by 50% over a 3-year period. Along the way, he crossed paths with the world and business leaders of our time while traveling the globe, flying up to 1 million miles over one 3-year period. But that success wasn't enough for Chris, who early adopted one of Accenture's core values as his own, giving back to his community. Both within and beyond Accenture, Chris found an abiding passion for reaching outside his everyday role to find ways to improve the community where he lives and works. It began in earnest a decade ago when he joined the Bay Area Council, and he still serves as vice chair of its Economic Institute. Chris joined the Tech Museum Board in 2008, and since 2012 has served as its chair. He remains active with the Stanford Institute for Economic Policy Research. He's also served on the board of the Santa Clara University Business School, the Foothill De Anza Community College District, Chancellor's Advisory Council, the California State University Foundation, and the Computer History Museum. You know, it was with joint venture, though, that perhaps Chris has found his greatest opportunity to have an impact on our region. Still today, Chris is involved in new business adventures, he's consulting, and he has an abiding love of race cars. Chris and his wonderful family, Eileen, and his two sons, Scott, an aerospace engineer in Seattle, and Brian, a physics major at Carleton College in Minnesota. Without question, Chris digiorgio has been able to do extraordinary things that have made a major impact on Silicon Valley. He truly exemplifies the spirit of David Packard. Now, will the officers of Joint Venture Silicon Valley please join me on stage as we welcome the recipient, our first recipient of the 2015 David Packard Award, Chris digiorgio.
Well, you get a lot of awards, but you don't get very many medals, so this is pretty cool. Well, thank you, Tim. This is really a great honor, and I'm truly humbled to be here to accept the Packard Award today. And I want to start by thanking Russ and the Joint Venture Board for thinking of me with so many deserving civic leaders to choose from, many in this room. I would also like to acknowledge and thank my parents, Tom and Nancy digiorgio, who are here in the audience today. I believe my qualities of community service that are being recognized here today were developed in my youth through the values and role model of my parents. They grew up next door to each other in the ethnic neighborhoods of South Philly at a time when community meant everything. They lived in a row house on a street with 40 other houses on the block, with no backyard to speak of, and shared walls with both of your neighbors. Personal lives and public lives mixed regularly on the stoop and on the street. At one end of the block was the school, at the other end was the church. On the street corner was a local grocery store run by a family who lived above it for decades. Around the corner was a clothing mill where many locals worked. In this kind of a community, no one talked about civic engagement. It was just part of daily life. If someone needed help, you helped them. If the school needed painting, you painted it. The neighbors looked out for each other together, and they made the whole community a better place. When we moved to that small town of Fairfield in the 60s, this passion for community continued. My father, who was a full-time pilot in the Air Force, nonetheless found time to be the president of the Junior Chamber of Commerce, the Italian American Club, the Retired Officers Association, to name just a few. And of course, my mother was active in these organizations as well, likely doing much of the organizing behind the scenes. So when I became managing partner for Accenture here in Silicon Valley, I had the opportunity to get involved in this neighborhood. It seemed natural. But this neighborhood is a bit different than those row houses. We often live 30 miles or more from where we work, and another 20 miles from where we shop, and many miles from our school or church. We travel insulated, or should I say isolated, in our cars and on our phones, hands-free, of course. So perhaps it's understandable that if people in our region don't feel connected or interested in the well-being of the region, then that's understandable. But I'm preaching to the choir in this room. You are all connected and invested in the Silicon Valley community. And for that, I am honored to be here with you. Together, you have all made a difference. Joint Venture has made a difference by bringing the region's many shareholders together to tackle the toughest problems. And like my parents did so long ago, together you are all making a difference in this community and making it better. Again, I thank you for this great honor. It's been my pleasure.